stopped by today. Luna's world had already been turned upside down in Los Angeles by secrets about her mother Poppy, her relationship with Bill, and the complicated dynamics of the Forrester and Spencer families, but nothing could have prepared her for the shocking, life-altering discovery she was about to make. Something that would not only rattle her but also shake the entire Spencer and Logan families to their core. It all started innocently enough when Luna found herself at the Spencer Publications office late one evening, collecting files for a project assigned to her by Bill himself, a gesture that made her feel included, cherished, and finally welcomed into the mighty world of Spencer men. Luna wasn't snooping, at least not on purpose, but she had a tendency of being interested, and curiosity often revealed realities that were best kept hidden. She was looking for an important financial file when she came upon a drawer that had been shut for years, with the key carelessly placed in a bowl on the desk, as if daring fate to tempt her. Against her better judgment, she turned the key and took out a small manila envelope with Bill's name written on the front in fading pen. What she discovered inside were not business paperwork or old contracts, but a stack of sensitive medical records, paternity test results, and letters that had evidently been buried for decades. Her breath froze in her throat as she read the words over and over, each sentence biting harder than the one before. Will Spencer's paternity test confirmed that Bill was not his real father. Luna's hands trembled as the magnitude of the news became clear, her thoughts racing with the consequences of what she had just learned. This wasn't simply a petty family squabble or a long-forgotten gossip. It was a game-changing reality that had the potential to shatter relationships, alter legacies, and rewrite the whole story of Bill's connection with his youngest son. The longer Luna gazed at the documents, the more her mind and heart struggled with whether she should put everything back and pretend she never saw it, or whether it was her obligation to confront reality and protect people who could be caught off guard later. She pictured Katie, strong and independent, but still damaged from her years with Bill, and the sorrow she would feel knowing that the core of her son's identity was based on a lie. She thought about Will, who had grown up believing he was Bill Spencer's son, representing the proud Spencer history, and cringed at the thought of how heartbreaking it would be for him to discover he wasn't actually a member of that family. But most of all, she thought of Bill, arrogant, strong, larger than life, but still incredibly vulnerable when it came to his children, and wondered how he would deal with the shattering realization that the son he had loved and reared as his own did not truly belong to him at all. Luna squeezed the papers to her breast, as if clutching them tight would keep the secret from spilling out into the world. But secrets on the bold and the beautiful always seemed to leak out at the worst possible time, and this one was no exception. Her revelation would kick off a series of events that no one could stop, pitting families against one another, rekindling ancient rivalries, and forcing the Spencers, Logans, and Forresters to face realities they had desperately sought to hide. Luna knew she couldn't keep what she'd discovered hidden forever, but she also understood that revealing it carelessly may do irreparable damage. She began repeating in her mind every encounter she had ever observed between Bill and Katie throughout their custody fights, including the tension in their chats and the sly smiles exchanged by others who appeared to know more than they ever spoke out loud. Could it be that Katie had always known the truth, but decided to remain quiet for Will's sake? Or had she been tricked into believing Bill was the father when he wasn't? Luna's pulse raced as she considered Carter, Ridge, and Brooke, all of the individuals entangled in Bill and Katie's relationship, and recognized that this secret had far-reaching consequences. Every fact on this show was like a pebble thrown into a pond, causing ripples that got larger and larger until they reached every shore, and this secret was no tiny stone. It was a rock crashing into calm waters. Luna sat behind Bill's desk, engrossed in contemplation, and didn't see the footsteps approaching from behind her. She immediately slipped the papers back into the envelope, her heart racing, but it was too late. Someone had noticed her. Who it was would influence everything. If it was Bill, she could lie and pretend she hadn't read anything, but she didn't think her scared appearance would be convincing. If it was Katie, Luna may be faced with a desperate request to remain silent in order to save Will from discovering the truth. If it was Liam or Wyatt, they would probably demand answers and be willing to expose the scandal without hesitation. And if it was someone like Hope or Steffi, the consequences might tie many more people in an already explosive secret. Luna turned, her heart in her throat, knowing that whomever had gone into that room at that very moment was going to become a part of one of the most shocking revelations in the bold and the beautiful history. The wealthy world of Forrester Creations, founded on the twin pillars of high fashion and even greater drama, may feel like a gilded snow globe, constantly disturbed by an invisible hand, propelling its gorgeous residents into a tornado of controversy, romance, and treachery. Luna Nozawa had found herself an unusual but optimistic participant in this dazzling whirlwind, her kind demeanor and creative skills standing in sharp contrast to the harsh ambition that defined so many others. Her once guarded heart had been completely caught by Will Spencer, a young man whose generosity and honesty shone like a beacon through the jaded fog of Los Angeles high society. Their love tale was a delicate subplot in a huge opera of chaos, a simple, lovely melody set against a backdrop of smashing cymbals and harsh chords. Luna recognized in Will a purity of pedigree, a direct and unblemished link to the great Logan Forrester Spencer families, but he bore that history without the hubris or entitlement that it so frequently breeds. He was Bill Spencer's son, and there was a certain acknowledged history, a known amount of Spencer pride and power that Luna accepted as part of his character, even as she admired him for transcending it. This perspective, this basic comprehension of her beloved's Genesis tale, was like the calm surface of a deep, motionless lake, on which Luna's future bliss appeared to float serenely. She could never have realized that under that placid surface was a secret with such seismic strength that its final explosion would not only destroy her world, but also threaten to upset the very foundations of every strong family she had come to know. It started with a gentle, almost banal sense of curiosity. Luna, ever the meticulous and caring person, had been charged by her mother, Poppy, with obtaining a certain vintage piece of jewelry from an old memento box, a trinket from Poppy's more bohemian days that had unexpectedly regained popularity. The box itself was a memory trove, a literal chronicle of Poppy's life before the sleek penthouses and luxury labels, packed with fading concert tickets, dried flowers, and photos of a woman Luna scarcely knew, her smile brighter, her eyes harboring a different type of dream. As Luna looked through these antiquated items, her fingertips brushed upon a little, leather-bound folio tucked away at the bottom, buried behind a folded silk scarf that still faintly smelled of patchouli and yesterday. It felt different from the other keepsakes. It was purposeful, formal, and out of context. She was intrigued and drew it out. It was a medical paper, the pages somewhat yellowed with age, and the professional language was harsh and impersonal. It seemed to be a paternity test, something she was aware existed in the dramatic world of the Forresters and Spencers, but had never directly experienced. Her eyes, originally searching with mild curiosity, landed on a name that made her blood run cold, Poppy Nozawa. Her mother, the subject of the test. Her heart began pounding against her ribs, a furious throb of foreboding. This was private, hidden, and a door she shouldn't have opened. But the attraction was insurmountable, a siren song of concealed truth. Her eyes darted down the paper, collecting dates, medical language, and, finally, the two names that determine the outcome. The putative father is Bill Spencer. Her breath caught. Bill and her mom? This was a controversy by itself. But it was the conclusion, the ultimate, written decision, that halted time itself. The words probability of paternity, 0%, appeared to sear themselves into her retina. A rush of dizziness swept over her. Bill wasn't present, so her thoughts searched for the other child's name. So there it was. Not her real name. Of course not, she was too young. This happened years ago. The name named was the one that rocked her entire universe, connecting this old secret to her present, heart, and destiny. William Spencer Jr. was the kid subject of the test. Luna's lungs emptied in a quiet, agonizing surge. She dropped to the floor, the document fluttering from her limp fingers like it was radioactive.
Will.
Her will. The certificate declared with cold, scientific certainty that Bill Spencer was not his biological father. The implications erupted in her thoughts like a series of firecrackers, each one louder and more deadly than the previous. Everything she believed she knew was a lie. The whole Spencer ancestry, Bill's joyful proclamation that my son carries my name and my blood, and the father-son dynamic that she had taken as gospel were all meticulously created fictions. Poppy, her mother, knew. Poppy had always known. This paper, stashed away for years, proved that her mother was the guardian of this earth-shattering truth. Luna's thoughts swirled about in a whirlwind of bewilderment and treachery.
Why?
Why would her mother own this? How did she get it? What was her link to Bill Spencer and the secret? Was it all luck, or was Poppy somehow involved? The inquiries were a deluge that threatened to drown her. She recalled Will's honest eyes and steadfast sense of self, which were inextricably linked to being a Spencer, Bill's son. He did not know. He had spent his entire life in the shadow of a great falsehood. And she, Luna, now had the terrifying power of that knowledge. It was a weight so heavy she felt physically crushed by it, a secret so profound it seemed like a live wire in her hands, perilous to carry and disastrous to lose. The ensuing hours were a haze of agonizing indecision. Luna paced her room, the document now seeming like it was burning a hole through the drawer she had quickly stuffed it into. She looked at her phone, Will's lovely face smiling on the screensaver, and her heart sank again. How could she look at him now without this knowing glaring in her eyes? How could she kiss and cuddle him while concealing a fact that would definitely ruin him? The weight of it was isolating and absolute. She pondered approaching Poppy, but deep, innate terror stopped her. Her mother had secrets, a background that was sometimes cloaked in cryptic stories and shifting topics. This was the treasure trove of all those secrets, and Luna wasn't sure she was prepared for the narrative that would undoubtedly follow, a story that might involve Poppy in an incredible deception. She thought about Bill, his intimidating presence, and his ego as large as his money. It would be devastating to discover that the boy he had reared as the successor to his empire was not his own child. It would completely unravel the Spencer family. So where does it leave Will? Will he be put aside? Would he lose more than just his identity? What about his family, inheritance, and place in the world? Luna's love for him had evolved into a ferocious, protective pain. She wanted to protect him from the anguish, to put the genie back in the bottle and never let it out. But she understood, as everyone in Los Angeles ultimately does, that secrets of this scale have a life and a will of their own. They fester and develop in the darkness, and their final appearance is never clean or controlled. Someone else knew. Poppy knew. He was aware of his biological father's identity. This reality was a ticking time bomb, and Luna had just discovered the timing. The seriousness of the problem went far beyond her and Will's relationship. It was a thread that, if plucked, would unravel the exquisite tapestry of the Forrester, Logan, and Spencer clans. Bill's relationship with Katie Logan, his ex-wife who had always been a steadfast presence, would be called into doubt, their past evaluated through the prism of a fundamental deception. The dynamic between Will and his cousins, Douglas and Kelly, would alter tectonically. The future leadership of Spencer Publications, a source of pride and controversy for Bill, was abruptly thrown into disarray. And what about Steffi Forrester and Liam Spencer? This seismic upheaval in family structure would have an indirect influence on their lives, which were already complicated by co-parenting and previous romantic relationships. Luna hadn't simply found a piece of paper. She had discovered the key to a Pandora's box with the capacity to rewrite history, damage reputations, and divide the city's most powerful alliances. The responsibility was daunting. To inform Will would be to crush his heart and perhaps start a chain reaction of destruction. To not tell him would be to live a lie, to base their love on a mission, and to live in continual dread that the truth would eventually leak out, making her complicit in the deceit. She was imprisoned in a golden cage of her own finding, a captive of a truth too strong to impart and too dreadful to preserve. Every glance, every word shared with Will suddenly felt filled with subtext that he couldn't possibly comprehend. His casual mention of his father, his ambitions for the future at Spencer Publications, his entire identity, it all felt like a moving performance in a play with a fundamentally broken script, and only Luna, sitting in the audience, understood the true conclusion was one of tragedy and upheaval. The love she felt for him was now intertwined with a desperate, aching pity and a profound fear for the day his world would collapse, a cataclysm she now had the power to trigger or delay, a burden no young heart should ever have to bear, a secret that had already begun to change everything, casting a long, dark shadow over their bright and promising future.